Now, I'm here to tell you really about seizing opportunities. And when you find yourself in a situation, like we just heard, you do find yourself in situations, my advice is to try and seize it. And when I was asked to do this talk, I looked at a number of situations and realized that's kind of what I'd done without realizing, and I think a lot of people do. But I think it's a good thing to realize. Now, my first bit of the story is becoming a PA. I didn't want to be a PA. My father made me be a PA. And he was very Italian, and he thought I should get married and have children, which I did do as well, but I became a PA first. And he sent me to the Cambridge Marlborough Secretarial College, which was where a lot of girls went between their chalet girling and their cordon bleu. And I wasn't that kind of a girl. So my first day, I was sitting at the back of the class, spiky hair, pink rah-rah skirt, thinking, I don't really want to do this. And this woman walked in who was an inspiration, and I wish I could remember her name, because she stood there like this, looking like Miss Moneypenny, and she said, you are not here to learn how to be secretaries. You are here to learn how to be the sorts of women without whom businesses fold. Have I made myself clear? And I thought, oh, now that is interesting. So the shorthand, the typing, that all helped, but this turned out to be less of a finishing school with a bit of business tacked onto it, as a business school with a bit of finishing tacked onto it. We did actually have a lesson on how to sit on a desk and take shorthand without showing too much thigh. So I left Cambridge Marlborough Secretarial College, and I went home and I did a bit of temping in Brighton, and then I was asked for an interview with this man here, Mr. Goodcoop, and this was at a company called British National Insurance. He was their finance director. And he sat there with his feet in his desk and chatted to me about my job. Now, I had left the Cambridge Marlborough Secretarial College with really good results. What was he doing, sitting like that? He wasn't taking me seriously. So I went off, and the agency rang, and they said, he's offering you the job. I said, I'm not working for him. No, what do you mean? He's a director. It's your first job, and I'm not working for someone who doesn't take me seriously. And they went, right, okay, well, we'll come back to you. So they rang back, and they said, well, we've spoken to him, and he's very sorry, and he'll interview you again. So I was 19. So he did interview me again, and I got the job, and we got on famously, and that was great. So I worked for him for a year, learned a lot. The thing about being trained as a PA is you go in at top level and you learn from the people you're working for. In those days, it was mainly men, but they were clever men, and you act like a sponge and you pick things up. So I then went off to London, got a job at Thames Television working for the director of programmes, which was very interesting. And I remember retyping a draft of the bill. That's how long ago it was. And then I went to work for Current Affairs. I worked for the reporters of a thing called TVI, which was like ITV's Panorama. And that was very interesting too. So I learned about research. I learned about how programs were made. I was allowed to go into the editing room and see how all that worked. And then I went to work for a guy called Terry Keller, who was editor of a program called Reporting London, a kind of precursor to the Now show, I suppose. Anyway, I worked for Terry for a bit, and he said, you know, you're quite bright, you should go on and do other things. So I thought I could be a researcher. That's interesting. Children's department wanted a researcher, so I applied for the job, and I got a phone call from this lady. What are you doing applying for a researcher's job? You're a secretary. So I put the phone down, and I burst into tears. And Terry came out and said, what are you crying about? I said, oh, Sue just rang me up and said I can't be a researcher because I'm a secretary. He went, Sue, I wish I could remember her name too. And I went, yes. He went, but she used to be my secretary. So a blonde glassed ceiling was what I encountered. So I left there, and I got a job in a very small exhibition company, which was good because there were 5 people in this exhibition company, and we ran 5 shows, 3 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 shows. So we all had to muck in. So I went as a PA, and within a week I was learning about direct mail. Now, for the younger people in the audience, direct mail is what's now called spam. But at the time, you had to learn to target it very well, and then it worked. It was there was a science to it. So I learned about that. I learned how to promote shows. I learned how to run them. I learned how to draw out floor plans and everything. I learned a lot because there were so few of us in that company. But just before our first show, my boss called me in, and he said, be careful who you speak to. Marriages are made at exhibitions. I'd already spotted mine, actually. And he was there, and he published our show catalogue, and I did indeed marry him. So having learnt a lot, Richard, my then boss, sold his company some new people took over. I deemed it time to leave, and I went to work with my new husband, and we started having children. And that was all fine until my first daughter was a couple of months old, and the recession hit rather badly, and he rang me from work and said, Gigi, you're going to have to work. Really sorry. I was going to be a stay-at-home mum in Fulham. Anyway, that was not to be. So I thought about it, and then, next slide, please, I thought, I'm not working for anyone else. I've got a baby now. I'm going to do this myself. So I rang the people I'd met through the exhibition industry and said, I'm starting an exhibition support services company. Will you give me work? And they all went, yeah. So that's how I started my own business at the age of 26. And I did quite a lot of work for those companies, did quite well. And we developed the company, and I think next slide's probably okay now. Yes. By the time I had my second daughter, the first one was now at nursery, but Georgia was too little. And I had one pitched all exhibition stands for BBC Worldwide, and I was going in there to take a brief, and I walked into this big room, conference table, about 8 people sitting around one end, and I plonked the car seat on the end, and sat down, and this bloke went, what's that? And I said, well, that's a baby, and she needs feeding in 45 minutes. Can we get on with the meeting, please? Oh, it's okay. So we had the meeting, and that was fine. And, you know, who's going to mind, really? And it was my company, it was my business, I had work to do, and that was how I had to do it. And actually, you know, no one minded. I did have an exhibition contractor nearly sit on her when she was on a sofa once. But that was okay. So we grew the company, and next slide, please. This is about thinking on your feet. I started to run demonstration kitchens for food from Britain, and this was at a very imaginatively exhibition called TEDx in Tokyo. And we had a whole list of food demonstrations based around British food, and on this occasion it was beef. But when the freight was unloaded, they said, no beef, impounded, BSE. What are we going to do? So my chef, Colin, was like, what are we going to do? I said, wait. I went round all the exhibition stands, and basically all we had was a lot of pork sausage manufacturers and a lot of scotch. So I came back with the pork sausage scotch, and he said, what are we going to do with that? And I said, we're going to flambe them. And we're going to tell everybody that sausages in scotch is really big in London. And we did. And they set on fire, and it caused a hell of a fuss, and the sausage and the Scotch people went back with orders coming out of them. So you can turn everything into something. So then I grew the business. Then my brother, I think my brother comes into this now. Can I have the next slide, please? No. Oh, no, this is how the PR business started. So this is my now ex-husband, but he's still very nice. We were sitting in the office one day, and the phone rang, and someone on the phone said, you promote exhibitions? Yes. Do you do PR? Yes. Well, can you pitch for this show? Yes. I put the phone, I said, Ken, how does PR work? And he went, what do you mean? I said, well, we're doing a pitch for PR the show next week. He said, but we don't do PR. And I said, well, we do now. So we went to do the pitch, and we won the pitch, and that's really how I got into PR. It kind of worked, and I seemed to have it in my DNA, and it was fine. So we lost the exhibition side of the business because we had to pay contractors, and it wasn't making very much money. With PR, you can charge lots of fees, and it's great. And I turned out to be very good at it. So one client actually subsequently told me that his turnover had gone up by 3 million quid in the 3 years I did his PR, but he didn't tell me at the time, because I would have put my fees up. So we did the PR, and while I was doing the PR, my brother rang me one day. He's a GP, Dr. Vincent Forte, a GP and a medical author, and he said, I've had a terrible day. I've had all these women complain to me about having to pee into little bottles when they give a urine sample. I'm like, yeah, and? He said, well, we've got to do something, because what it means is that everything's dirty and we're contaminating everything, and I don't think we're getting the right bit of the sample, because I keep seeing the same people again for the same problems. I said, oh, Vincent, just make something. Because when we were children, he made lots of things. He used to set my mother's kitchen on fire quite a lot. And he rang me a few weeks later and said, I've made something. So what's that? He said, well, it's a kind of funnel. I've called it the female freedom funnel. And next slide, please. This is him. The urethra moment. And so I said, yeah, okay, that's quite good. And he won a Medical Futures Award for this. It was a little piece of paper at the time. It looked like this is a stuck-together piece of acrylic, actually. Anyway, we took this and I looked at it and looked at the market, and I spent about 5 years picking up, putting it down, thinking there must be a market here. And then I looked at the real problems of urine collection. Now, people don't like talking about we, but I'm going to. Because when you give a urine sample, what happens is you have to give a midstream, because without that, you will likely contaminate the sample. A good analogy for this, without talking too much about we, is if you have a house that people think have been burgled. Policeman will go up, can't see very much, calls the detective, looks in, detective can't see anything either, and he doesn't really want to, make too much of a fuss about it. So he calls in the ambulance, the fire brigade, anything else that might help, and they will go in. And that's costing a lot of money. Now, the policeman is the doctor. There's a problem. I'll call the expert. The expert, the lab technician, has to look through the window to see what's going on. If his urine sample is contaminated, he can't see a thing. So he then calls in the big boys, the antibiotics. And they dole out antibiotics because no one can be diagnosed. So you've got dirty hands, dirty bottles, you've got an inaccurate sample, you've got too many antibiotics, you've got people not being treated properly first time. I thought about all this, and it's not rocket science, is it? Let's do this. So we developed Peasy, he and I packed up my PR business, I asked my clients to invest in the new business, and most of them did, and we got going. And I think maybe the next slide. So Forte Communication became Forte Medical. That's a seizing the opportunity moment. The female freedom funnel became Peasy, obviously, because it had to. And we developed Peasy, we worked on the R&D, I became very au fait with injection moulding and manufacturing techniques and quality assurance. And let me tell you, quality assurance people speak a completely different language. So you have to learn all of that. And once we had Peasy, a few years later, it's taken quite a while. Next slide, please. I have spent the last few years going up and down the country with my suitcase full of Peasys. I've got some here later if anyone wants some. Now, the reactions I got were generally very, very good. The nurses, why has it taken so long for this? Does this mean I don't have to touch another wet bottle? This consultant said to me, literally, if it means I don't have to touch another wet bottle, I'll pay for it myself. This will cut waiting times midstream. Are you sure? Have we really sorted this problem out? Anyway, that was all very good. Now, the point we're at the moment is we have a big sales company now who's come in. I managed to get us standardised into private hospital groups and into about 30 NHS trusts in little departments. We now have a very, very good sales distribution partner who's taking that over. So that leaves me to focus on export. So we're working with UKTI, we're looking at going to the States, to Europe, we're already talking to somebody in Spain, and that's incredibly exciting. Now, part of what I'm doing, it doesn't kind of stop there. Again, it's about seizing the moment, looking at opportunities. And I started looking at other areas of specimen collection. And it turns out that when you talk to urologists, there's someone said, well, can we have the first bit of urine, please? Because there's a new prostate cancer test that identifies a protein called EN2 in male urine, which means that this should become something that happens in the GP surgery. So I thought, yes, we can. Yes, of course we can do that. Didn't know if we could, but I thought we probably can. And so we reverse engineered Peasy to catch the bit that we currently get rid of. So the way it works now, it gets rid of the first bit, catches the midstream, gets rid of any excess. So we've reversed that for this process. So we're prototyping that, and we're working with a teaching university who's developed this protein. And we're very hopeful that will work. A few months ago, I was talking to head microbiologist in Birmingham. And I said, do you have any problem with stool sample collection? He went, oh, yes, we do. I was there for an hour. Things I can tell you I won't because it's before lunch. And we're also, so we have now, what we're looking at now, slide please, is the Specimen Collection, a portfolio of products that focus on accurate specimen collection so that people can be diagnosed first time. You don't have to go back to the doctor. You don't have to take unnecessary antibiotics. You don't have to soil yourself in order to be diagnosed. It's a brilliant thing. The problem we have is that the NHS say, well, we only pay 9p for the bottle, you want 95p for your kit. And we say, yeah, but you're not going to have to pay for the retesting. Now, there are 66 million urine samples delivered to the NHS every year. Up to 30% of those cannot be read. So a third of the people in this room, really sorry, you're not going to get diagnosed, you're just going to sit there with your legs crossed. That's not okay in this day and age. So the specimen collection is where we're at. And I don't know if there's another slide after this. Yeah? That's it. That's where we are. So the message is there: seize opportunities. Listen with your eyes. See what's around you. And actually, don't sit there and go, this is happening to me. Yes, it is happening to you. Well, make it yours. That's really the message I have for you. Thank you very much.